This is Duke University.
Thank you, President Broadhead. A couple days ago, I was told that if it rained today, they would have to shorten the program, which meant no national anthem, no alma mater, and no me. Only the guest speaker, John Chambers, Cisco's CEO, would go on. Okay, so the rain takes out country, the rain takes out school, and the rain takes out the man on the street. And what do we have left? Corporate America. What a relief. But I do want to thank and welcome Mr. Chambers, Provost Lang, the members of the Board of Trustees, my parents, and of course, my fellow classmates, the class of 2011. You see, I've heard from friends at other schools that graduation is when you look around to either side of you and you realize for the first time, you don't know half your classmates. But not at Duke. Because if there's one thing that distinguishes a Duke student, it's that little magnet on their back that draws the next Duke student towards them, and then the next, and then the next, until there's no more room on the bus, or for that matter, in Cameron Indoor, or on the plaza, or wherever graduate students hang out. You see, a natural tendency to enjoy being with other people is the best part of a Duke student. In the fall, I took an improvisational theater class where I made a discovery that would rival literally anything I'd learned in my engineering certificate. For a class exercise, we had to make a flash mob, planning something that looked spontaneous to anyone watching, but is entirely manipulated. As my classmates quietly positioned themselves along the quad, I singled out a random Duke student coming off the bus on East Campus, and I began to follow her. As she progressed down the quad, my 22 classmates slowly fell in line behind me until the first-year student became the unknowing leader of a snaking line. When she stopped to take a phone call, I had the chance to look behind me and see the line we'd formed. And I realized something incredible had happened. The line was now 30, but there were 22 people in the class. 8 freshmen had done what any Duke student does when he or she sees a line. They joined it. Forget that they didn't know what the line was for. Keep in mind, we're in the middle of a lawn on East Campus. Here was a line, and they weren't about to lose their spot in it. Okay. I don't mean to suggest that Duke students are lemmings. So I choose to look at it in a different way. I liken it more to this principle in physics that says nature abhors a vacuum, or, as Aristotle called it, horror vacui. Aristotle used this concept to explain why nature fills in empty spaces with gases, sort of like the person sitting to your left. Basically, it explains on a fundamental level why the Earth is the way it is. And for once in my life, I agree with Aristotle. You see, Duke students abhor a vacuum too. So if they see one, they fill it with their energy. If there's an empty table in the Great Hall, we'll fill it with students. If there's a blank wall in the Bryan Center, we'll fill it with flyers. And if there's a void in the national media, well, I think you know we're good at filling that void too. Anywhere we see an opportunity, we will all jump in to fill the space. Is there any other student body in the country that cares so much about being together? We choose to sleep in tents for 2 months for a game we know we could walk into on game day. We come back early from summer break to carry mini fridges upstairs for incoming students. And we join 17 different listservs so that even when we're not together, we're talking. It seems that whatever we're doing it as a team. We know that every student adds something. In fact, 14 people helped me write this speech, and I think it's better for it. And if you disagree, I'll give you their names. Okay, but this is Duke we're talking about. For a lot of us, our best experience with teamwork happens in class. This semester, I was teamed up with a group of Pratt engineers for a class project. We had to design a floating device that uses reverse osmosis to desalinate water. Yikes. I'm in Trinity. But okay, I'd been on a boat before, so I knew what a buoy was. But that was about the extent of my knowledge base. And then a day came when the engineers said, you know what? We could make this work if only we had a pair of bus tires. And I realized I'm the tire guy. I'd worked for 4 years on student government with Duke Transit. They owed me a pair of old tires. And guess what? The Trinity kid made that buoy float. You see, where others see room for personal advancement, Duke students see room for one more person. On spring break this year, I traveled to Russia on a totally unexpected trip and met with Arkady Dvorkovich, one of Russia's top economic advisors. He is known for wanting to reinvest in Russia's infrastructure and replace the ruling elite with a more representative government. And in his free time, he blogs for the Huffington Post and he updates his Twitter account. 2 objects stand out in his office. The first is an autographed basketball. The second, a Duke diploma. Yes, Mr. Dvorkovich, an architect of Russia's economic kickstart, is a Duke graduate. He received his Master of Arts in Economics from our graduate school in 1997 while living on Swift Avenue. Of course he favors public transit and the populist movement. He took the C1 bus to the concert on the last day of classes. When he found out a Duke student had been sponsored for a spring break trip to his country, he made sure I made it to his office. Because yeah, the Duke magnet even pulls people halfway across the world. But let's be frank. The fact that we're so loyal makes graduating from Duke seem a bit daunting. We can't conceive of living in a world that isn't filled with and run by our friends. When you were looking for a job, did you ever ask a recruiter if there were any Duke students at their company? If you did, they probably thought you were trying to figure out if you'd get hired. But we both know you just wanted to see if you'd have a friend there. Still, there is hope that our loyalty will be what sets us apart. Mr. Dvorkovich showed me that as Duke graduates enter the world, they turn their tradition of sticking together into a commitment to teamwork and empathy. Mr. Dvorkovich transformed his affection for his comrades at Duke into a dedication to helping the citizenry in Russia. In a tone of humility, he told me that Russia's most important task right now is not to become globally competitive. It's to meet the needs of its own people. What he exemplifies is bigger than some predisposition to forming impromptu lines on the East Campus quad or playing Tetris with our bodies on a public bus. It's a tendency to be inclusive, to join in, to get involved, to reach out, to make communities, to make friends. You see, what I've realized is that in fact the world abhors a vacuum. So class of 2011, let's take this world and fill it with Duke graduates. Thank you very much, and congratulations, class.
Produced by Duke University. Online at duke.edu.